Hi everyone, welcome to your Staying on Budget, Tracking Your Bills lecture, where we're going to cover tools and habits for success. So this lecture is going to have a couple of goals. First is to view options for mobile tools to track your bills. And the second is tip number one, to stay on budget with this bill payment tip. So first of all, to stay on budget, you want to get mobile. There are a lot of budgeting apps out there. So you need to find one that's going to work best for you. A couple of tips for you when choosing your mobile app is find something that works for you on the go, because it is a must to keep on budget. You never know when you're going to be out and about and you're going to buy something, or you find out about an expense you weren't expecting and now you need to alter your budget. So finding something mobile to have with you at all times so you can make those changes on the fly is super, super important. Tip number two is use something that will sync to your desktop, because it will relieve a ton of headaches. More than anything, you don't want to be bouncing back and forth between a desktop app and a mobile app, because you might miss something along the way and they may not sync up and you may not be able to figure out why. So you want something that will automatically sync your transactions, your budget changes, all of those things for you. And tip number three is investing a little bit on a good budgeting app will save you big time later on. I know it's a hard thing to make a decision to, spend a few dollars on an app in the App Store. It's just generally something I don't do. But one thing I always, you really have to balance is understanding that, having a good tool that's going to help me stay on track is of more value than a couple of dollars to me. So it's an investment, but invest a little bit to save a lot later. So I want to take you through a couple of the free budgeting apps out there that I find to be some of the most valuable of those that are out there. We're going to look at the pros and cons of each one. So the first one up is Best Budget Free, and now they do have a paid version of this one as well, but I look specifically at the free version. It does track your budget versus your actual transactions. So it gives you a good comparison as you go throughout the month. So you can see how you're doing on your budget based on your actual expenses. But you have to manually enter your transactions. Downside, but it's manageable if you are diligent. It does give you reminders for the need for a payment. So if you've got a bill coming up, it's going to shoot you a notice or a notification that you've got something coming up and you need to make that payment. But it is a fairly limited app just overall, because you really have to manually enter everything. It's just very straightforward. Now, if you love straightforward and all you want to do is just see how your budget versus your actual is doing, and you don't mind putting in your transactions, this is a great app for you. Let's look at BillGuard. BillGuard does analyze your budget and your actual transactions by category. So it's going to give you those good pie charts like we have in our spreadsheet. That's going to really give you a good comparison to make sure you're staying on budget as far as your percentages go. But it doesn't give you a budget versus actual comparison. So you really don't have your budget in this app at all. It's just helping you track your transactions. So if you keep your budget like on your phone in like the spreadsheet app or something like that, then have this keeping track of your transactions, it can work. It does, however, have automatic entry. So it's automatically putting your transactions in. It's basically syncs with your bank account. It pulls all those transactions over, categorizes them based on how you want them to be categorized. And that helps you really analyze where your actual expenses are going. It is, however, limited because it doesn't have that budgeting feature in it, but it does have fraud protection, which basically it gives you a heads up that, hey, this looks like an unusual transaction. It's coming from Las Vegas or something like that, and you're not there. Is this you? It's basically what your bank does for you traditionally. This kind of gives you a even quicker heads up. Hey, there's a transaction clearing your bank right now. This may not be you. Is it you or not? So there are some definite advantages to BillGuard, but I do want to take a look at one more. It is Mint. Now, Mint does sync to mint.com. So this is a huge advantage that it does sync to something on a desktop, makes for entry super, super easy. It does not, however, have a calendar view, which I prefer in an app where I can look at a calendar and say, okay, I know this Friday I'm going to have my electric bill come out. So I can be remembering throughout this week that that either needs to be paid or it's going to be coming out of my account. Or I know that I have 5 bills due before my next due date and I can see it on a calendar. Some apps have that, most do not. But I do prefer that in that, and this just doesn't have that. It does, however, do automatic entry, which basically means, like I said before, that it pulls your transactions in from your bank and helps categorize them and track them that way. And it does have payment reminders. So it's going to remind you and give you that notification if you need to make a payment. And it does also track budget versus actual. So this really is a fabulous free app. As long as you don't mind having that, not having that calendar available. If you really want something that's going to do a lot of things for you, this is definitely the app for you in the free section. Let's take a look at some paid budgeting apps out there. I've got a couple on the screen here, and we're going to look at the pros and cons as well. But I want to look first at Home Budget with Sync. So it's basically Home Budget, but they do have Sync in there as well. What it does is it tracks your budget versus your actual. So it's huge. It's got your budget in there and it's got your actual in there, so you know where you are in comparison. It does not, however, give you payment reminders. So you really need to use other options as far as tracking, when you need to make a payment. It does have a very nice feature here. It has syncing capability, not just syncing to your computer, and having a desktop application, which they do have available specifically on the Mac for sure. It is an additional cost over the phone app, but in my opinion, I think it's worth it because I think it does have a couple of extra features in there as well. But it also syncs to other family members, so your other family members can have the budget on their phone as well, make changes to the budget or add transactions, which was why I loved this so much, because my husband could be off getting lunch and put the transaction in, and I don't need to now get a text message from him saying, oh, I spent $15 on lunch today, whatever it is. He can just automatically put it in our app and we can track our transactions. However, it does have to be done manually. It does not sync directly from your bank, so you have to manually put those transactions in. It does categorize by or analyzed by category. So it's, you put those you manually track those transactions. It is automatically going to put it into a category that you preset, and it's going to analyze it for you. And it does have a calendar view. So this is by far one of my favorite apps because it has a lot of really, really good things. I don't mind putting my transactions in there manually, and neither does my husband. So it works great for us. But let's take a look at SpendBook. This is another alternative. It does analyze your by category again, so it's pulling those transactions, setting a category that you set, and it's analyzing it with those big pie charts, and you can really see where your money is going per category. It does not do budget versus actual. So you don't have your budget in there at all, but at least it's showing you where your actual is. So you're, where you're actually spending your money, and then you can compare that to what your budget should be at a later date. It does do automatic entry though. So it does sync to your bank account, and it does pull those transactions in, and you get to set the category for each one. So huge advantage if you hate having to manually put in a transaction. But it is limited as well because it doesn't have that budget feature in it. But it does have camera integration, which is the biggest reason why I put this in here, because it helps you track your receipts. Now, if you're a business owner or somebody who just needs to make sure they're keeping track of all of their receipts, this is a huge thing because you don't have to keep track of those paper receipts. You can just take a quick snapshot, and it's going to track it in the app for you, and you always have access to your receipts. So lots and lots of great apps out there. Now, I want to help you keep on track by paying your bills on time. So the first thing is use bill reminders on your choice of app. If those bill reminders are not available, set Google Calendars to shoot you a reminder when you need to pay bills. You could also double up. If you've got the reminder ability on your app, you can do that in your calendar, whatever you need to do to make sure those bills are paid on time. Now, I've got a huge tip for you right now. Tip number 1 is to set up automatic payments for your recurring bills to avoid getting behind or having to pay a late fee. This was huge, and it totally revolutionized my budget. I just set up automatic payments for all of the bills that are always going to come out at the same amount or right around the same amount, and I just tracked when they were going to come out of my bank account. I didn't have to remember to make those payments. They just happened. And it kept me from always having to pay a late fee or forgetting or getting behind a whole month or whatever it was, which can throw your budget for a loop. So consider making automatic payments. Don't be afraid of them. It really matters that you're on budget, and you need to track that that's going to come out of your bank account and you're not going to overspend. But as long as you're staying to budget, this works amazing. So let's take a look at our lecture goals to see if we actually completed everything we were supposed to. First thing was to view options of tools to track your bills. We definitely did that. Those were our mobile tools. Tip number 1, to stay on budget with this bill payment tip. We definitely did that with the automatic payment. So congratulations, we definitely finished our lecture. Coming up is we're going to cross-check our budget and give you some habits for success. I hope you guys have really enjoyed this course. I know I've enjoyed teaching it. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to message me. I'd love to hear from you. And I'm going to see you in the next lecture. Bye, guys.